All speakers are requested to ensure that their comments are relevant to the particular agenda item. The chairperson may withdraw the privilege to speak where a speaker makes personal remarks or criticisms or uses abusive or inappropriate language. Speakers do not enjoy any special protection arising from comments made during council meetings and therefore should refrain from making defamatory remarks or personal defamatory statements against any individual. And can I please remind people with mobile phones to ensure that they're either turned off or onto silent. Thank you.
Apologies and leave of absence, obviously there's none. Disclosures of interest. The staff have any disclosures? Public forum. Ms O'Hara.
I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which we live and work always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you for the opportunity to address Council on the important matter of the Budget Operational Plan. Our democratically elected councillors were about to vote on an amendment when their suspension was announced, so this is a time of great opportunity for you to act on the wishes of residents, secure external funding and fix any remaining problems promptly so that our council can be returned to us. I'd like to commend to you the proposal to assign a staff member as part-time grants officer to identify all useful funding opportunities, including COVID-19 recovery stimulus money. We are aware that the community has missed a number of funding opportunities and also aware of the problems created by the $24 million overstatement of unrestricted cash during the previous administration that sadly was not revealed to councillors until December 2019. We need to lobby for exceptional circumstance funding to cover the costs of previous mistakes. Further, your attention is drawn to the number of shovel-ready projects referred to in the submissions, which could be commenced. Air quality continues to be a problem in Armidale, as all of us taking blood pressure medication can attest. ARC's delivery program has, as a measure of success, that we meet national quality standards by 2020. However, New South Wales Government data shows Armidale has 32 exceedances in 2018, all attributed to the non-exceptional event of pollution from wood heating in winter. Next worst was Liverpool, with 8 days over the standard, all attributed to exceptional events, hazard reduction burnings and wildfire. Since May 2020, Armidale has had 20 exceedances at the New South Wales Government monitor, so our lack of action on this important health issue is too obvious. Reinstating the pilot program to replace wood heaters with non-polluting heating in conjunction with upgraded insulation would be a very good way to use COVID-19 stimulus money, stimulating the economy while providing considerable benefits to our health and environment. Water issues dominate community concern, especially the unfairness of giving a much lower rate to one major user. The report in the business paper is very misleading in claiming intensive horticulture will pay more. The papers for April 2019 show that any special rate, which represented only a small price reduction, was conditional on agreeing to use untreated water and take pressure off the Guyra water treatment plant. The pumps transferring treated water to Guyra are undersized, and the town's 2 reservoirs on Prisk Street are too small to meet peak day requirements. With the tomato farm using 40 to 50% of treated water from the Guyra plant, the move to untreated water was said to benefit everyone by delaying expensive infrastructure upgrades. So the business paper should have compared the untreated water 31% price reduction.
Can I just interrupt you? You go a bit slower. I won't have a 5-minute time. Take your time.
Okay.
Take your time.
I will slow down.
Yeah.
Thank you. The move to untreated water was said to benefit everyone by delaying expensive infrastructure upgrades. So the business paper should have compared the untreated water 31% price reduction for one major water user with the 3-fold price increase for other untreated water users and the 95% increase for Guyra residents on treated water, and that's all in our submission. Such misleading claims and lack of fairness is disturbing, especially in the face of considerable efforts made to reduce water use by the general public. This lack of transparency on the part of council should not be attributed to those councillors who are attempting to represent the community's justified concerns. One way to help restore confidence would be to adopt the proposals that councillors were about to vote on before suspension, to reduce the standing charge from the current $225 a year to $150 as a partial reward to thank residents for using less water during the drought, and also charging all water users the same rate per litre during a kilolitre during water restrictions. This shouldn't adversely affect the water fund, especially if level 5 water restrictions can be lifted in the near future. Administrator, I urge you to examine these and the many other proposals in the submissions, all of which were just summarised and forwarded for further consideration in the future, and to reject the motion that the plan be accepted as it is. I'd also urge you to return the council to the councillors who have demonstrated their integrity and concern to represent the people who elected them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's no minutes to confirm. I'll have a short minute towards the end of the meeting. The first item is item 9.1, Integrated Planning and Reporting, on page 3. Who's introducing? Kelly? Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you, Interim Administrator. This report provides you with the recommendations to consider for adoption of the 2021 Operational Plan, Resourcing Strategy, Revenue Policy and Fees and Charges after the public consultation period. The consultation period included a range of community engagement, including pop-up sessions, webinars, a variety of village engagement sessions, online engagement through the website and social media. I'll now hand to Kelly Stidworthy, Manager of Financial Services, to provide you with a brief summary of the changes recommended from the submissions received during the public exhibition period.
Thanks, Leah. Thank you, Interim Administrator. Following on from that, the report on the 2021 Budget and Operational Plan contains details on the submissions received, and a copy of all submissions is provided in the report attachment. In response to the submissions received, the report recommends and assumes an amendment to the Rural Waste Management Charge, former Guyra Shire Council local government area, from proposed $144 to $83. A policy position had previously been determined to phase this charge in over a 5-year period, and 2021 would be the 3rd year in that time frame. The amendment is to bring the proposed increase in this charge back into line with the 5-year implementation time frame. A number of submissions were also received on the Waterfall Way landfill levy and operation charge. By way of background, all properties in the former Armidale Shire Council LGA have been paying a levy that funds the capital cost of the Waterfall Way landfill for many years. In 2021, all waste across the LGA will be diverted to this landfill, and it was proposed that the levy covering the capital cost should be applied to all properties in the former Guyra Shire Council LGA for the first time. In addition, the landfill is estimated to cost $840,000 per annum to operate and maintain, and it was proposed to cover this cost through the application of an operation charge to all properties. The submissions on these charges centred around the application of the charges to farmland properties in the former Guyra Shire Council LGA. Feedback from village community engagement sessions identified that specific objections centred around application of the charges to ratepayers who own multiple farmland properties and where such properties do not contain a dwelling. Council has limited options available to amend charges following public advertising periods without creating a negative impact on the budget. With this in mind, the number of farmland properties that would fall into such a category has been reviewed. The analysis showed that there are around 30 farmland properties, which are properties that meet the criteria of being in the former Guyra Shire Council LGA without a dwelling and owned by ratepayers who own multiple farmland properties. Council is not able to levy a charge based on whether a ratepayer owns multiple properties. Amending the charges now to not apply to all farmland properties that do not contain a dwelling would result in a negative impact on the budget in the order of $80,000. For this reason, and considering the low number of properties identified, no change to the proposed application of the Waterfall Way landfill levy and operation charge to farmland properties has been recommended in the report. Submissions were also received on proposed changes to water usage charges. These centred around the impact on households and ability to pay. The 1920 financial year has seen a significant negative impact on the water reserve due to the drought. This is estimated to cost around $6.3 million, and that includes a reduction in revenue from water usage charges in the order of $3 million. The water reserve needs to be maintained at a sustainable level, and this has necessitated a review of the water pricing to reflect the lower usage levels, and these are expected to continue for the following 12 months. As a result, water usage charges have been increased so that the revenue generated in the 2021 financial year is at a similar level prior to the drought. This will enable the funding in the water reserve to be replenished and provide funding for asset renewal and replacement, and also to respond to drought conditions should climatic conditions not improve. While water usage charges have increased for 2021, most customers should experience water charges at a similar level to 2017-18 and 2018-19.
Sorry, similar charges from 17-18?
Similar level to 17-18 and 18-19. The aim with the review of the water usage charges has been to simply bring the average water charge back up to pre-drought levels, not beyond that. Therefore, the proposed water usage charges should not cause additional hardship to customers when measured against the pre-drought levels. As a result of this, no change to the level of water usage charges has been recommended in the report. Further details on submissions and staff recommendations in response to the submissions is contained in the report. In relation to the budget, the 2021 budget was prepared in challenging circumstances with the impacts of COVID-19 shutdowns having a significant impact on the community, but also council's revenue. These impacts are estimated at this stage to negatively impact the 2021 budget by $925,000 in the form of lost revenue. This is in the context of continuing to deal with the impacts of drought and bushfires. As a result, it's not been possible to forecast an operating surplus for the 2021 financial year. The forecast 2021 operating deficit is $2.3 million on a consolidated basis. COVID-19 has created significant uncertainty around the future economic environment. An estimate of further impacts on the 2021 budget should the economy not stabilise is that a further $700,000 in revenue is at risk. For this reason, Council has included a provision in the 2021 budget to allow for an increase in the unrestricted cash position of approximately $1 million. While the outlook for the 2021 budget probably seems fair given the circumstances, the budget is predicated on achieving a number of internal efficiency measures and does not include provision for unexpected events such as fires and floods. For these reasons, it will be necessary to ensure that expenditure is closely monitored and controlled and that adherence to budgets is paramount. The outlook for Council's financial position over the next few years is poor. A consistent operating deficit is forecast, as is deterioration in the unrestricted cash position. Both of these are key indicators of financial sustainability. These forecasts also include the assumption that we retain the temporary special rate variation beyond the 30th of June 2021. This variation is worth around 10% of Council's ordinary rate revenue. The outlook for the building and infrastructure renewals ratio is another key indicator, and it's well below the required benchmark. These factors demonstrate that there needs to be continual focus on Council's financial position and underlying cash reserves. It will be necessary to take a long-term view on decisions relating to service levels and prioritisation of funding. Another immediate challenge on the horizon is the expiry of Council's temporary special rate variation at 30 June 2021. This is worth $1.6 million per year, and if it's not renewed or a replacement source of funding is not identified, then Council would run out of untied cash reserves within 2 years. As a recurrent source of funding, this would create a significant ongoing impact to Council services and the funding available to maintain essential assets. Whilst the current outlook for Council's financial position is sobering, it would be remiss of me not to highlight that there are a range of projects identified in the 2021 operational plan aimed at driving economic growth and job creation in the region. Underpinning the 2021 budget is a $40 million capital program, and this includes a number of landmark projects, such as stage 1 of the construction of the new preschool and long daycare centre in Guyra, Stages 2 and 3 of the Guyra Main Street upgrade, completion of Stage 1 of the Armidale Regional Airport Business Park, and Stage 1 of the Hydrotherapy and Regional Health Complex in Armidale. This is a snapshot of some of the great projects that Council will be delivering in 2021. Getting to this point on these projects has involved years of planning and hard work by many people, including Council staff and councillors, and it's important to recognise their contribution in the formalisation of this budget today. In closing, I recommend that the documents that constitute the 2021 Integrated Planning and Reporting Framework be adopted by Council, and also request that the comments that I have made in relation to this report be added to the minutes. Thank you.
In answer to the latter, most definitely, I think it was rather comprehensive, and as you say, Council is in a sobering financial position. I would say it's a little bit worse than that, but look, if I could just say that for the benefit of those who are here, maybe listening at home, I have read every word of every submission, excepting, I must admit, I did not read the New South Wales Murray-Darling Basin Fractured Rock Water Resource Plan. I just didn't get around to that. I thank the staff for the hours that they've put in with me, an extra hours you put in answering questions that I've raised in relation to the presented budget and plans. I very much appreciate that, and if you could convey to the people who work for you also my thanks for the time and effort they've put into getting information for me. I just advise people that I've had the opportunity of discussing this document with the staff. I will be making some changes, and I will be addressing a number of matters that have been raised with me by residents. They're talking to me since I've become administrator about some of the concerns they've had in relation to the council. This is an opportunity for me to address those matters and get further advice on a formal basis. In relation to the problems with the Waterfall Way waste depot, I attended a meeting at Ben Lomond as part of the consultations, and it was a big issue to say the least. And I was sympathetic to the argument being put. However, I was sympathetic on the basis that the property owners, I must say, I thought a farm was a farm was a farm. I didn't realise you had a farm and you could have several allotments. I've learnt a lot in the short time I've been here, and I thought it was a fair argument. If the property is in the same name and it's got no dwelling on it, it really shouldn't have these extra charges, in my view. But having said that, the law is a little bit more complex in addressing that issue, and I thank the CFO and his staff for all the options. I think 8 o'clock last night you were still sending me emails about different options that we could look at. And if I could just say to the people who are at that Ben Lomond meeting, I've done my best to understand the situation, and I've done my best to ameliorate it, which I will deal with in a recommendation in a second. I really think that there's not really much more to say about the budget. I understand the water issues, and I understand the impact that the great response from the community has had to demand usage has had on the budget position of the council. And I would hope that whilst the charges are going up now, when the drought is over and level 5 restrictions are lifted, if there is an increase in consumption, that the price will go down. It would be greed to do otherwise, but one could hope that it's a new era in water demand and people will use less, but that's a matter that you can only guesstimate on. But I would think that if the usage does go up, commensurate with that, the price will have to come down because otherwise it will become too expensive. But from the information made available to me, the price will for water usage will take it back to the cost per assessment will take it back to what people were paying roughly before the drought started, and that to some degree assists in getting money back into that fund. Having said all of this, the council's financial position is not fabulous, and I think that the staff have done a very good job in trying to address as many issues as they can, but at the same time maintain service levels. If I'm here a bit longer, I will no doubt be looking at service levels. I also understand the concern of people in rural areas about what I call dirt roads and maintenance of them, and just to ensure that there is a fair amount of money going into those areas. But you know, from the information I have to date, it's pretty well been maintained, excepting for problems associated with the drought, to what they were pre-amalgamation. Having said that, I would move the recommendation on page 3 of the business paper, parts A and B, but I've got quite a few amendments to flow from there. C, for the 2020-21 rating year, and upon notification of amalgamation of vacant farmland properties by the NSW Valuer General's Department, Council will credit the Waterway Regional Landfill Levy and Waterfallway Regional Landfill Operation Charge levied on the vacant farmland property for the affected rate assessments from 1 July 2020, provided that the rate assessments were held by the same owner as at 1 July 2020. Now, vacant means no dwelling on the property, that's all. D, receive a report on the status of Council's position on the New England Rail Trail, noting that $25,000 is contained in the budget for consultancy work. E, receive a report on the $750,000 per annum in direct financial support to community groups for the community wellbeing initiatives as noted in the resourcing strategy. F, note that the Workforce Management Plan 2018-2022 is dated and in need of update and report to Council within 6 months. G, quarantine player levies of approximately $40,000 held by it, and a discussion paper be prepared for both Council and the Sports Council to better understand and define roles to ensure a cooperative and productive relationship going forward for the benefit of community sport. H, that $5,000 be allocated towards the preparation of a business plan for the proposed Australian Transport Museum in the Airport Business Park, subject to agreement with the company on a brief and determination of a consultant. And I, with a view to commencing dialogue and better understanding of the not-for-profit, cultural and sporting groups' current lease and occupancy arrangements, prepare a discussion paper. The paper should provide options on the most equitable, consistent and possibly tiered lease and/or occupancy agreements that serve the interests of both the occupier of the facility or property and the wider community, with specific recognition of volunteering. Declare that motion carried. The next motion is 9.2, Administrator's Delegation and Expenses.
Thank you, Interim Administrator. This is a recommendation in 2 parts, that current delegations held by the Office of Mayor be conferred upon the Interim Administrator, Mr May, and B, that the current councillor expenses and facilities policy, including reimbursement of expenses, be extended to include the interim administrator or administrator expenses.
Thank you. I would move recommendation on page 13, A and B, but add a number C. All references in the documents to CEO be altered to General Manager. Declare that carried. The next item is 10.1, making of rates and charges on page 15.
Thank you, Interim Administrator. To support the 2021 revenue policy, the making of rates and charges report is a legislative requirement to support that rates and annual charges are formally made by Council. The report is consistent with the 2021 revenue policy adopted as part of the 2021 Integrated Planning and Reporting Framework.
Thank you. I would move on page 15 recommendations A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H and I, and declare that carried. Next item is 12.1, the special rate variation 2021-22 on page 21.
Thank you, Interim Administrator. This report recommends that Council commence investigation and an analysis of options for a special rate variation. As outlined in the comments associated with the report on the 2021 Integrated Planning and Reporting Framework, Council has a temporary special rate variation that is due to expire at the 30th of June 2021. If this is to be renewed, it will be necessary to commence work now to determine what options could be considered. The timeframes for undertaking a special rate variation mean that notification to IPART would need to take place in November or December this year. A review of Council's financial position has shown that the drop in revenue that would result upon expiry of the special rate variation without renewal, being $1.6 million per year, would result in a severe impact on services and cuts to expenditure on its essential assets. In addition, Council's financial outlook is poor over the next few years, and just renewing the temporary special rate variation alone will not be enough to adequately improve the position. For these reasons, it's recommended that Council commence the analysis of options with a view to, at a minimum, retain the funding provided by the current temporary special rate variation. If approved, the recommendation would not bind Council to applying for a special rate variation. It simply provides for the options to be determined, and these would be brought back to Council for approval prior to undertaking community consultation.
Thank you. In my view, there's little or no option than to at least maintain the 10%. I was actually, and I've raised with you, surprised you included it in the Council's forward financial plan, but it would have been a grave outlook not to have done so. There's no question about that. Okay, so page 21, the special rate variation, I'd move the recommendation as noted on the business paper and declare that carried. Next item is 12.2, write-off of rates.
Thank you, Interim Administrator. The recommendations in this report effectively close out an outstanding sale of land for unpaid rates matter that has reached a final resolution.
Thank you. In relation to this item, 12.2 on page 26, I'd move the recommendation A and B and declare that carried. Are there any urgent matters? I've got a short minute which I'd like to introduce to the Council. At the last meeting of Council, I noted that Mr John Rayner was to be appointed as Acting General Manager from 24 August. I also noted that further advice on acting arrangements would be made given the gap between Ms Law's departure and Mr Rayner's commencement. As delegations for such appointments have now been given to me, I wish to advise that Mr David Kerr will undertake the role from 31 August to 23 August. 31 July to 23 August. Mr Kerr's appointment has been made in consultation with Mr Rayner and he is being seconded from Northern Beaches Council in Sydney, where he occupies the position of Director, Community and Belonging. I publicly note my appreciation of the Mayor and CEO of Northern Beaches Council for their assistance. A number of residents have contacted me in relation to development matters outstanding with Council, noting their frustration with time delays, and I have met with several. In the meetings, I have made it very clear that it is not my role, nor will I become involved or offer comment in assessment of applications. This is clearly the responsibility of people who hold the requisite qualifications. Mr. Kerr is very well qualified to provide some general advice to me in relation to processes used at Armidale Regional Council on the assessment of such development matters, and I have asked for an overview to be prepared, including the resourcing of the area. In consultation with Mr. Rayner, a decision will be made to ascertain if further third-party intervention is required. I would move that the minute be received, and I declare that carried. There being no further business to transact, I declare the meeting closed.